Hello and thank you for joining me for another iTWire video with top international executives. I have with me today Kent Landfield. He's the Director of Standards and Technology Policy at Intel Security. Welcome to the program.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
No worries. You're welcome. We're on Skype, so there's a little bit of a delay, but you've come to Australia for a major cybersecurity conference. Can you please tell us about the conference and what you were saying there today?
Yes, this was the Intel Security Cyber Security Innovations Summit that's held each year. It's a summit where we bring together customers and government officials and people in the community to really have an open dialogue around certain areas of cybersecurity in the landscape. I was doing the keynote today. The keynote that I talked about was really how we need to rethink cybersecurity from the standpoint of how we're approaching different areas of cybersecurity and really trends that are being seen globally from the standpoint of risk management versus compliance. We spent, in the U.S. at least, we spent a great deal of time worrying about reporting on compliance to regulators, which for all intent and purposes is spending and siphoning off money that could be used for really focused cybersecurity operations, as opposed to making a regulator happy. At the same time, describing the NIST cybersecurity framework, which is a very effective tool we found within Intel, as well as within the U.S. So it allows for a much better approach to risk management, allows us to really break down the walls of communications between different areas of the business, the network folks and the C-levels. The second area that I focused on was information sharing. One of the things that's growing in the U.S. is really having information sharing move from PDFs and Excel spreadsheets and Word documents into real automated cyber threat intelligence sharing. So we talked about some of the standards that are being used in various efforts around the globe around cyber threat intelligence sharing and cyber indicators. And then the last part of the topic was really about critical infrastructure. We have IoT, Internet of Things, growing as an area. As an industry, we need to design and develop products that have security built in, designed from the ground up. We weren't able to do that originally when the physical infrastructure that's there today to support our water and our electrical and other aspects of critical infrastructure were put in place. And a lot of those devices are 30-year-old devices that have been in the ground for 15 years. And you know, how do you protect something that's never intended to have security built around it or in it in the first place? So we talked about some research and innovation that's going on in the U.S., both within Intel as well as within Texas Tech University and NIST, National Institute of Standards and Technology, around how to do that. So it was a very good event. So far, it's still ongoing.
Yeah, I understand it's going for the rest of the day at the National Press Club in Canberra, so you've got to be going back and participating in some more Q&A sessions and talking to more people. But what was the reaction thus far?
So far, it was very interesting. It seemed to have been well received. We have we're having a Q&A a little later on this afternoon so that we can really open it up to the audience as opposed to some of the panels that we've had as well as the presentations that we've had.
Sure. And have you been running this same sort of security conference both in the US and elsewhere around the world in Asia Pacific?
We do. It's not quite the same in each of the countries. It's very, very focused and tailored to the needs of those specific countries. Yep. But yes, we had one in the U.S. We had one in EMEA, and we have one here in APAC.
Sure. Any particular other red hot topics from, say, EMEA or the US that really pertain to Australia, or things that maybe that are different over there to what we require here, or is it all more or less the same?
The reality is cybersecurity is a global problem. It's not a national problem. We have the same adversaries that are really trying to take aspects of our infrastructure out to gather or acquire intellectual property, to potentially get the crime aspects, potentially get the personal information that they can use and leverage for criminal activities. So it's really not different. It's how certain governments are trying to figure it out and address it. And in reality, this is a global problem that needs a global solution. And allies and partners really do need to work together to try to solve this together.
Sure. I mean, we've certainly seen a lot of hacking attempts for major corporations and Targets and Sonys, but we still haven't really seen any major breach of infrastructure. We've seen plenty of movies about it, like the Die Hard movies. But when do you think, I mean, how do you think the security space is going to evolve over the next 12 months, let alone the next 5 to 10 years? When do you think we might get some bona fide, really shocking, infrastructure attack that's really going to wake people up, more than what you're already trying to do so valiantly?
I don't have a good answer for it, because it really is something that's just going to happen at some point.
I mean, you're trying to prevent it.
Intelligence and the ability to really respond and prevent, that's to be determined. Really for the next couple of years, there are trends around putting more and more automation in place that will allow information sharing to be effective, to really have the ability to share in trusted communities that can be reasonably dynamically set up. It's not as much an automation issue in many cases as it is a legal framework issue. So governments are actually, in the United States for one, the UK for another, looking at liability protection for those companies who are really trying to share for the right reasons, not just sharing for sharing's sake, but sharing to solve a problem. The biggest thing that I see from a standpoint of cybersecurity in general is we're looking at an environment where in the past, many of the products have been very, very siloed. It's a matter of really looking at what it is that those individual security products, infrastructure products are capturing internally. Can we leverage that information and use it to bring the intelligence level up in the organization so that we can be much more reactive in real time or near real time, as opposed to the organizational or human speeds that we've been operating on in the past. The adversary works at wire speeds and we work at human speeds. We're already at a disadvantage. As we start to create environments where you have publish, subscribe kind of aspects to notifications, certain types of things that occur in the enterprise, then you can actually have your firewalls, your email gateways, and other components within your network be able to leverage the information that it sees either globally or locally about certain types of threats. And for example, in the past, if an endpoint encountered a virus, it would quarantine, clean it, and it would be done. That would be it. Yeah. Today, those same types of products are actually communicating to a local threat intelligence exchange kind of infrastructure that will capture that information. And then the next time something similar to that is actually seen, it can immediately say this needs to be quarantined. If there's something suspicious, the same environment can throw it off to a sandbox and either convict or allow based on what it determines from the payload, from the structure, from the approaches and pieces internally. But then that same information is available to your email gateway. So when an attachment comes in that may have that file attached to it, it can check and immediately know, no, I'm blocking this at the boundary. I'm not going to let it in, because the environment is sharing information and really dealing with security from a holistic perspective.
Sure. I mean, because Intel makes, putting security into its hardware, and because Intel Security is working with Intel on doing that as well as software. I mean, it's not just about being reactive, it's about being proactive as much as possible as well in the ways you've described.
Yeah, the purchase of McAfee years ago really was to try to change the game. When you're talking about chips and infrastructure that has been deployed for many years, it takes a while to sort of get those into the mainstream, so to speak. You know, some of the things we're doing with hardware-assisted security, we're seeing new and better techniques being built into the chips that are coming out this year, as a matter of fact, that will enable some very new approaches to trying to make it harder for the bad guys to take advantage of the environment. Hardware-assisted security is definitely going to become a much more of an important aspect as we move forward in the future.
Sure. Now, I always like to change gears a little bit and just ask if you can please share the best piece of advice you've ever received to help you get you where you are today.
Surprisingly, the best piece of advice I ever received had nothing to do with cybersecurity. It had to do with never burning bridges.
Yep.
Regardless of where you were and what company you worked for and what your role was, anytime it was time to leave or anytime you really were in a tough situation, you never really wanted to burn a bridge.
Sure.
Because it's a very small community. And regardless of what community it is, especially in the security community, you know, who you're working for today may be one of your employees tomorrow. The same thing also as people move from one company to another. It's been very, it's amazing how much that small community can help influence everyone else and everyone else's careers. Networking is important, but burning bridges is more. Not burning bridges is more important.
Sure, absolutely. Great advice. And so do you have, Kent, any final messages for iTWire viewers and readers and for Intel Security's current and future customers?
What I would say is look to vendors who are trying to create that holistic solution. This isn't a one vendor kind of a problem. This is a ecosystem, but you need to have vendors who are sharing information and making that information available to the rest of the ecosystem, as opposed to keeping it proprietary for their own specific purposes. You discover something, you need to pass it on so you can help those next to you, whether that's your competitor, whether a product, or whether that's your own product. Reality is this needs to be dealt with at wire speed, and the only way to do that is to break down those walls.
Well, Kent, thank you very much. Enjoy the rest of the conference, and I hope you enjoy a bit more of Australia.
I hope to, yes. Thank you very much. I enjoyed it today.
Thank you very much, Kent. Bye-bye.
Have a good one.